After being reborn, my sister switched our room cards. Her hands were trembling, her voice full of excitement. You've been the missus for a lifetime, sis. It's time for me to enjoy the riches. After a night of fun, when she came out, my sister looked assured. Last time, you got lucky with a single mark, climbing up the social ladder thanks to the baby. Huh? Looking at her belly, I couldn't help but smile. Oh, my dear Klinefelter syndrome nephew. Or should I say, my little nephew. In my past life, every holiday season, she would complain about her miserable marriage to me. Jason is the worst. 5 years at the company, and he's still just a little manager. What a failure. All he knows is laundry and cooking at home, not a manly bone in him. Your husband, though, he's got success and wealth. Sis, is that Dior's latest dress you're wearing? Looks amazing. I quickly stopped her when she reached for my sleeve, but she sulkily accused. Touching it won't ruin it, you're so stingy. You just got lucky, mixing up hotel room keys, and ending up with the CEO. If it were me who stumbled into that room. At that time, I was too busy hiding the bruises under my clothes to notice her envious eyes. The CEO of the company, my husband Nolan. It seemed he sensed us talking about him, turning to give me a faint smile, overflowing with affection. Everyone praised him as the ultimate wife-doter, envying my good fortune, especially my sister whose voice was the loudest and most grating. But it sent a chill down my spine. Nobody knew Nolan was sick. A madman. A sadist. He was slowly torturing me to death. Yet surprisingly, I didn't die by Nolan's hands. I died at the hands of my own sister, Clara. Due to her constant taunts and ridicule, Jason strayed. The day they divorced, instead of taking revenge on the cheating husband and his lover, Clara stormed into my house with a knife. Molly, you just got lucky and married well. Now that Jason dumped me, you must be thrilled, right? My life's ruined. You shouldn't have it easy either. Saying this, she plunged the knife into my artery. I couldn't fight back, having spent the previous night locked next to the toilet by Nolan. I didn't even have time to shout that your brother-in-law is even worse than Jason, a devil, before breathing my last. Ha ha ha. Clara's mad laughter filled my ears again. I opened my eyes wide suddenly. In my dying moments, Clara's distorted face full of jealousy overlapped with her current ecstatic expression. I immediately realized. Both Clara and I have been reborn. Mom, I want this room. Clara moved quickly, a bit urgently, fearing I might compete with her. She took the hotel room, originally booked for me, out of my mom's hands. Squinting slightly, I guess we must be on a family trip when I first met Nolan. You just got lucky, mixing up hotel room keys, and ending up with the CEO. If it were me who stumbled into that room. Clara's words from my past life echoed in my ears. I looked at her reddened eyes, and her voice, thrilled to achieve her heart's desire, held a hint of madness. I smiled slightly. Sure thing. I nodded, letting Clara switch our room cards. Twisting the room card, Clara stood by the door, voice low, eyes a bit crazed. You've been Mrs. Big Shot all your life. It's time for me to enjoy the luxuries. Don't worry. When I marry your husband, Nolan, I'll reward you with some cash to compensate for killing you in our past life. With that, she eagerly pushed open the door to embrace her new life. I couldn't wait either. Clara wants my life. Great. I don't want my past life back anyway. Eyes fixed on the closed door. I felt like I could see the man behind it, a beast in human skin. And Clara's bad ending in this life. After a moment of staring, I walked away, feeling light, humming a tune. Finally free from the pile of crap that weighed me down. That night, I slept more peacefully than I had in both my lives. No more rageful man dragging me to the floor for a beating. No more body and soul being torn apart. Opening the curtains, the sun was shining just right, the breeze was perfect. Unlike me, Clara had her night of fun. Coming out of that room, her face brimming with happiness. Seeing me again, her happiness shifted to certainty. In the past life, you got pregnant like this once, right? Elevating thanks to the child. She gently touched her still flat stomach. I can soon replace you. Before I could congratulate her, our parents and Nolan appeared. Spotting a man coming out of Clara's room, my parents were furious. Who are you? Why were you in my daughter's room? What did you do? With that, Mom was about to slap Nolan. A surge of nausea swept over me. The same thing happened to me last time. I didn't get such treatment. Smack. In the past life, that slap landed on me. Barely an adult and seducing a man, bringing disgrace upon us. I always knew my parents favored my sister, but until my rebirth, I didn't realize how blatant their bias was. They used words like harlot and tramp to describe me, the victim, while coddling my sister, who went through the same incident, with comfort and honeyed words. I scanned everyone present. This time, I will make them all see. Clara, who envied me and wanted to take everything from me. My parents gave birth to me, but they don't love me. My abuser Nolan. They all deserve a fate worse than death. Mom, this guy has nothing to do with it. He was drugged and didn't mean to act like that. He's not a thug. We're all victims here. We shouldn't blame each other or keep hurting each other, Clara said, trying to sound reasonable, probably hoping Nolan would see her in a new light. She then shot a warning look at my parents. How could she let them ruin her plan to snatch away my privileged life? Years of mother-daughter bond have made my mom pause and start asking Nolan for an explanation. However, Nolan didn't react like he did in the previous life, where he promised to marry me right after our encounter. Instead, he casually said, "Is $1 million enough?" What? Clara was shocked, her eyes wide open in disbelief. My mom couldn't hold back anymore. Her maternal instincts kicked in, and she cursed Nolan furiously. My daughter's lost her dignity because of you, and you're offering money instead of marriage? You're scum. Do you think my daughter's some sort of? Nolan just laughed coldly. A one-night stand leads to marriage? If it wasn't for the setting, I'd probably burst out laughing. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I heard something pleasing from Nolan's mouth. After writing the check, Nolan left without looking back. Clara stood there, tears welling but not falling, as my parents almost sobbed with her like a scene straight out of a drama. I felt like an outsider out of place. In my past life, I asked my mom, "Why do you treat Clara better than me? You're the older sister. Why do you have to compete with your younger sister?" She replied, "Clara's younger. She needs more parental help. Isn't that normal? Besides, Molly, ask yourself, Clara's lively and lovely, while you always sulk like the family owes you something. Can't I prefer a daughter who clings to me? Is a mom not allowed to have her own preferences?" She said it like that, and she meant it. That's why she reassured Clara repeatedly, promising to get justice for her, not letting her suffer in vain. Clara mentioned that she might be love-struck with Nolan, saying marriage wasn't out of the question. Love at first sight? More like love at first dollar. People hellbent on self-destruction can't be stopped. Maybe my mocking gaze was too much. After my folks left, Clara dragged me into her room. She didn't look fragile anymore. Instead, she glared at me and demanded, "Molly, was this your doing?" I feigned innocence. "We both just got reborn. You know, I haven't even been in touch with Nolan." Clara realized I was right and threatened, "Molly, in this lifetime you've lost the upper hand. Don't think of doing anything stupid, or I'll finish you a second time. Even if you complain to our parents, who'd believe we're reborn? Even if they did, you know they'd never choose you over me." Clara's obsession. Nolan is a weirdo. His biggest hobby is training people. I was the one he couldn't tame, so he spent the most time, and was most obsessed with me. I knew all this long ago. The reason he proposed marriage right after our crazy night was my fierce resistance. What he loved wasn't my looks. It was my defiance and the conquest only I could give him. Seeing Clara's room disaster, I frowned in disgust. She must have been very cooperative last night. So cooperative it killed Nolan's thrill. Crossing my arms, I spoke coldly. "Even if I don't fight for Nolan, you couldn't get him, right? He's clearly not interested in you, reborn or not. He's into me, not you." With my taunt, Clara's face darkened, and she fell silent for a moment, her eyes darting as if plotting. Then she chuckled. "Yeah, he likes you with your aloofness playing hard to get. Thanks for reminding me, sis." Watching Clara's self-assured look, I nodded with satisfaction. She's got a bit of brains, but not much. As for Nolan, he's an idiot too, easily lured by Clara's wannabe act. How much did he really love the former me anyway? Now my parents are all lovey-dovey with their wealthy son-in-law, pretending the previous drama was just a misunderstanding. A month later, just like my past life, Clara started having morning sickness. I remember when it was confirmed, my parents slapped me in front of all the medical staff. They accused me of tainting the family's name by being pregnant out of wedlock, ruining Clara's reputation. How can your sister find a match with an elder sister like you? You're filthy and dragging the whole family down. After that, I had no dowry, no wedding. My parents shipped me off to marry Nolan without a peep. Clara, slow down, careful with my grandchild, my mom said as they returned from the hospital. Helping Clara sit down, she turned to me and barked, Molly. Those eyes just for decoration? Your sister's pregnant, can't you bring her a glass of water? Yeah, there it is. That's the mom I recognize. I didn't quite get it, but there was this secret corner in my heart that held a bit of inexplicable anticipation. So I went ahead and asked, Clara's pregnant before getting married. Doesn't that bother you guys? My mom brushed it off like it was nothing. Don't you start with that. Your sister and brother-in-law were just swept away by passion. Who cares about getting pregnant before marriage? It's just having a kid before tying the knot, same difference. Saying that, she suddenly remembered something, hurriedly grabbing her phone to call Nolan. The kid's on the way. It's time to start planning the wedding. Surprisingly, the guy who's always dodged any marriage talk agreed the moment he heard Clara was pregnant. I caught a glimpse of those mother-daughter smiles with the corner of my eye, and I felt a strange satisfaction. Go ahead and laugh. Let's see how long you can keep it up. To avoid the baby bump showing and stirring gossip, my parents quickly finalized the wedding plans for Clara and Nolan. They pulled all their strings to book a hotel and get the dress. They vowed to give their daughter an unforgettable wedding. While everyone was busy with the wedding prep, I moved out, claiming it was inconvenient for my brother-in-law to come over while I was still living there. In my last life, I married right out of college and missed out on so much. This time, someone else could take over my bad luck. I was determined to do the work I wanted and live the life I chose. On the wedding day, as Clara's big sister, of course I showed up. Looking at the fancy dress I never got to wear, and the table packed with expensive delicacies, my heart was calm. When it was time to toast, Clara pulled me into her oh-so-sisterly act, whispering words only the two of us could hear. Molly, you're so dumb. Letting go of such a rich guy for me to snag. Thanks a bunch. The mansion is super comfy, and the Rolls-Royce beats the subway any day. But too bad for you, in this life, you're destined to be broke. Her taunting, I took it all in stride and drank my wine with grace. Trash loves trash. Congrats, sis, you and your husband are a match made in heaven. Clara clearly didn't catch my sarcasm, flaunting her perfect love at every table like a proud peacock. After the wedding, Clara finally lived her dream life as a rich wife, wearing million-dollar dresses and carrying limited edition bags. Every bracelet a magnificent shackle. She bought set after set. And of course, her favorite thing to do was brag to me, gloating over how happy she was after taking my life, delighting in my fall from grace. Finding out I was working late nights, barely making over 10 grand a month, her bragging went into overdrive. Molly, last life, when I complained about useless Jason, you told me every family has its struggles and people should be content. But deep down, you looked down on me, right? You had it all, finest food, best lifestyle. You must have forgotten what being poor is like, huh? Since you're so chill, enjoy your 996 job. I put down my coffee, squinting at Clara with her designer clothes. You're right, dressing up does wonders. The Clara of today was way more polished than last lifetimes. Hey sis, that watch, is it a Patek Philippe? Completely clueless about my dig, Clara thought I was admiring her, stroking her belly with smug pride. See, even coming back to life doesn't boost intelligence. Seeing her gesture, I recalled what the doctor told me after Clara's amniocentesis last life. I smiled slyly. I heard Clara had connections. Check the baby's gender, a boy? Boys are perfect for carrying Nolan's genes. Right after our chat, I ran into the one man I'd been avoiding since my rebirth, Nolan. My heart pounded, even though Clara was the one who married him this time. Guys like him don't follow rules. If he set his sights on me, who knows what lengths he'd go to grab hold of me again. So I played meek, kept a low profile, and made myself as invisible as possible. But never in a million years did I expect, while confidently presenting our company's proposal to the room, that Nolan would be there. I thought after work I could finally relax. But he cornered me in the parking lot, in the shadows where no one else was. His tall frame felt so imposing, closing in and boxing me between him and the wall. I could barely breathe. Flashes of him hurting and humiliating me flooded back. Back then, when I called the cops on him, he'd tie me with a dog chain to obey, putting my food on the ground, forcing me to crawl. At first, I thrashed around wildly. He'd watch with sick amusement, milking every ounce of my resistance for kicks. 3 days in, fainting from hunger beside the table, I never gave up my dignity. Positioning himself to conquer me became Nolan's obsession. He'd make me endure all sorts of unbearable acts. No clothes, no going out, subjecting me to his cruelty on my knees. In public, a polished, gentle gentleman. In private, shredding me to bare bones. Fear of Nolan is etched in my very being. Sensing my shivering, Nolan's gaze flared with even more interest. Is my sister scared of me? It took a while to muster up the courage to find my voice and slip back into my sheepish act. I knew Nolan despised people without any spunk, so I didn't fight him at all. It's freezing out here. What brings you here, brother-in-law? Is Clara with you? I tried to use my sister as an excuse to pull away, but he grabbed my wrist, sniffing it lightly. Seems like sis has changed from usual? Seeing his eyes peering from beneath his glasses, my heart just sank. It's over. No matter how cautious I am, I can't escape this fate. Am I doomed to be stuck with Nolan, even in this new life? What on earth does he like about me? Why doesn't anything I change make a difference? With a flash of fierceness in my eyes, I forcefully broke free from Nolan's hold. If running won't work, then I'll confront him head-on. With utter disdain, I wiped the spot where he touched me. Your wife is pregnant, and you're still pulling this crap, brother-in-law? Aren't you afraid I'll tell Clara? Nolan leaned against the wall, shrugging. Sure, whatever, sis. Shameless. I didn't want another word with him, so I turned to leave. But he called after me, sis. How did I not notice how charming you are before? I just have a feeling you're meant for me. After that, I doubled down on my plans against Nolan's family. Thanks to my last life, where I lived like a pushover, Nolan never took me seriously. He never hid his confidential stuff in his study, or had private calls away from me. I closed my eyes, replaying every detail in my mind. When I opened my eyes, I had a solid plan. Even though I didn't go telling Clara about Nolan harassing me, she found out anyway. I got called back by my mom's frantic calls to find Clara wailing when I arrived. She's got the crying act down, always playing the victim to win sympathy from my parents. Mom, someone's seducing Nolan. Her husband cheated again? I glanced at Clara, puzzled. Why does everyone cheat on her? Until she pulled out a photo that made me rethink mocking her. The photo of Nolan cornering me in the parking lot. Got no idea who took it, but I was luckily hidden, blocked by Nolan's height and angle. Molly, your company's also in this bidding process. Do you know who this homewrecker is? Clara's words said one thing, but her eyes screamed. Is it you? I gotta say, her instincts are sharp. But I can't admit it. With brother-in-law's wealth and looks, he's got people lined up. How should I know who it is this time? After hearing me, Clara assumed that I'd dealt with Nolan getting seduced before, just like her, and clenched her fists full of hate. My mom kept cursing the woman out. Seducing someone's husband, her whole family will get cursed. Is her mom dead, or did she not teach her? Must run in the family. Her mom must have been a homewrecker too. It's scary how my mom would curse herself without even realizing it. Once she was done, Clara, with venom in her voice, snapped. So what? I'm carrying the golden grandchild. As long as Nolan's parents value me, they can't touch my position. I won't let anyone threaten my family. She said all that while eyeing me with a knowing look. Great, we're 2 lifetimes of grudges deep, and my own life at stake. She won't let me off, and I won't let her off either. Yeah, let's get them. But honey, take care of yourself too. Mom, I'm not just back for this woman. There's something else more important. More important? I suspiciously eyed Clara, and my gaze landed on her belly. Sure enough, Clara pulled out a report from her bag. Noticing the report, I sat up straighter and took a look. Suddenly, joy filled my heart. God hasn't forgotten me. What Clara showed was her amniocentesis report. Mom, my baby has the XYY syndrome. My parents looked clueless. What XYY? Clara explained, frustrated, until they finally grasped what it meant. So this kid's got an extra Y what? Y chromosome. Normally, men have XY, women have XX. But this kid's different. Oh, so he's like super manly? Clara, you should be happy. My parents were still confused, and Clara was beyond frustrated. How can I be happy? Do you even know the risks of XYY syndrome? I looked it up. This kid might be a born psychopath, a danger to us all. Even the doctor said to rethink keeping him. Hearing this, my parents were startled. Then let's abort. The grandchild isn't more important than you. We can try again, as long as my Clara is safe and happy. Again with the mother-daughter love show. I clenched my fists, eyes down, afraid they'd see the disgust in my eyes. In my past life, my child had XYY syndrome. That was my first time facing something like that, and in panic, I went to my parents for help. What did they say back then? No such thing as XYY, never heard of it. That's your kid, your own flesh and blood. Want to abort? Are you even human? What are you? You believe everything a doctor spouts. If they send you back without that child, we're not taking you in. Better have the kid, keep your husband happy. Everyone's having kids, and you're making a fuss? I thought they were stubborn and ignorant. Turns out they were just heartless. Maybe karma really caught up with them this time. I got a second chance, and now this is a win. Because a doctor from a past life said so. The test results for the kid showed something unusual, an extra Y chromosome. Ma'am, is the child's father kind of hot-tempered? How is this related to Nolan? At first I was just confused. But when Nolan's parents blurted out, another super male. Could it be hereditary? It solved the puzzle for me. Nolan has super male syndrome too. That explains why he's so impulsive and angry all the time. This is why Nolan's parents are so concerned about the next generation. Super male syndrome means low fertility. And this might be Nolan's only child. A bloodline they hold sacred. They didn't care much for our family at first. But once they heard Clara was pregnant, they welcomed her right away. Afterward, I looked up more information. There wasn't much, and this kind of genetic issue hasn't been fully researched. Some experts say it's a chromosomal disorder, not genetic. Others think it might be hereditary. Sis, you've got experience in this. Should I have this baby? Clara asked me, breaking the silence. I felt innocent, like how would I know? I've never had a baby. I don't even have a partner. This time, even our parents sided with me. Yet Clara, are you out of your mind? How would your sister know about this? But Clara persisted, pushing our parents away to ask me in private. Molly, don't play dumb. Didn't your child from a past life have the same issue? How wouldn't you know? With Clara being as petty as she is, if I said anything, whether the child had issues or not, she'd blame me for life. Just like when I advised her to appreciate Jason more. Yet all she saw was malice. So I gave her a vague response. Sure, but you know moms are biased. Besides, didn't you meet your little nephew in your past life? Clara seemed to have an epiphany. Yes, I saw him. He looked like any other kid. The doctor said that with guidance, he'd be okay. I can't lose this baby or Nolan. She resolutely decided, leaving business as an excuse to end the conversation. I laughed all the way back home. Forget about the odds, let's talk about proper education. My child might have turned out okay, because I died young, and his symptoms hadn't shown. Or maybe because I taught him how to manage his emotions. But Nolan's super male baby is from Clara. A father with mood swings, and a tactless, malicious mother raising a super male syndrome child together? That's a disaster waiting to happen. Clara decided to keep the baby. And when he was born, she proudly shared it on social media. Mother and child safe, more love in my life, she announced, thinking her family of 3 would live happily. I knew this would come back to haunt her. Her real nightmare was just beginning. Sure enough, before the month was out, Clara got beaten up. Nolan took his time with any violence only because of the kid, afraid of ending their bloodline, not out of love. Once the baby was born, he didn't hold back, showing his true colors. But Clara was luckier than I was. Seeing bruises on her daughter, our parents were furious and confronted Nolan's family. They were no longer friendly. She's too precious, isn't she? Waltz over to other families and see if anyone's daughter-in-law is this pampered. When your daughter seduced my son, he could suckle, but my grandson can't. Taunted to silence, our parents raged further, even threatening divorce. Fine. The kids are blood. But take your daughter back. With my son's looks and status, if your daughter doesn't know how good she's got it, plenty will want in. At the brink of an attack, my mom fainted. Rushed to the hospital. She was left partially paralyzed. As we watched over her, Clara wasn't concerned for our mom's life. Distraught, she turned to me. Molly, I remember in a past life he hit you too. Why didn't you get a divorce? Yes, Nolan hit me too. Why didn't I divorce him? Recalling my mom's words back then, I repeated them to Clara. Divorced women, second-hand goods. Who would want you after? Men are all the same. Leave one. No guarantee the next will be different. Nolan's rich and good-looking. You should count yourself lucky. Must have been you doing something wrong. He's great. Why would he beat you otherwise? Women should be gentle and understanding, not play hard to get like you do, especially when you're a mom now. Stop acting like a young girl. Clara, I'm not misleading you. Those are mom's very words. From the moment you decided to swap lives, you lost your way out. What kind of prey invites a predator and thinks they can walk away unscathed? Why didn't I divorce Nolan in a past life? Because I simply couldn't. Clara didn't stay long at the hospital, heading home and leaving me behind. It wasn't out of filial duty. It was out of necessity. The doctor said if my mom worked hard in rehab, she might recover. That's not okay. When she woke, I kept talking to her about heartfelt mother-daughter moments. Mom, do you know what kind of life your precious daughter is living now? I'll tell her everything from my past life, all the abuse I went through. But in her mind, it's Clara who suffered all of it. I watch her heart break. She's so emotional. If only she cared this much about me in my past life. My eyes suddenly sting, and something runs down my face. With a raspy voice, I continue. Do you know why she ended up so miserable? I always knew what kind of person Nolan was. And I knew it was him in that hotel room. But you see, the room was changed because your younger daughter insisted on it. The man? Your younger daughter wanted to marry him. The child? Your younger daughter wanted to have it. Ha ha ha. The more I talk, the more exhilarated I become. And so does my mom. She's lying in bed struggling, like a fish washed up on shore. Finally, she becomes still. After pulling myself together, I put on an anxious face, tears streaming down and run out. Doctor, my mom fainted again. This time, she never got the chance to recover. She was destined to spend her later years bedridden. Without the protection of parents, Clara's life was worse than mine in my past life. Maybe because Nolan had a weird kind of love for me. He wasn't as cruel to me as he was to Clara. But I didn't care. I focused on exploiting his company's weaknesses, stealing his business. I saw Nolan again a year later. Seeing me as his contact, he smirked and walked over casually. Long time no see, sis. I smiled back, without the fear I had after being reborn. I arrived early, and there was no one around yet. Nolan didn't hesitate to chat with me. You and Clara don't get along, huh? I tilted my head and stayed silent. He didn't care and continued. Clara's been a brat, snatching a lot from you since childhood, right? A hair clip, a doll, new clothes your parents love, and a room key. Turns out, it should have been you I spent that night with. How should we punish her for taking so much? Break her arms and legs? Had it been when I was just reborn, Nolan's words would have terrified me. Anyone would fear power, wealth, and those who tormented them. But things had changed. While he was caught up in his sadistic ways, I had silently dismantled his defenses. Seeing me unmoved, he leaned in closer, his breath almost on my face. If you want, I can help set things right. I'll divorce her and be with you. That way, you won't have to struggle at work. The company? I'll hand it over. How about it? Before I could respond, my colleague arrived. Molly, you're here early. And Nolan too? Let me introduce our boss, Molly, who's in charge of this collaboration. What? She's not just an employee? Nolan was visibly shocked. Running a hand through my hair, I laughed. Nolan, you just said you'd hand over your company. Still game? Looking at Nolan stunned, I chuckled. XYY syndrome does come with a chance of intellectual disability. My last life's entrapment was due to bad luck, getting tricked into marriage right after graduating, with no one to help. If only there had been another option. I negotiated a few more points down, closed the deal, and calculated the performance bonus. I laughed recklessly, breaking free from the marriage trap. I have endless possibilities. For the next 2 years, I kept pushing Nolan out of the business scene. The stress he'd get from me, he'd take out on Clara. I once saw Clara, blind in one eye, limping, her mind shattered, almost insane. Her voice wasn't gone though, as she barked at me. Molly, why? We swapped lives. Why are you still better off? Why is your husband this way? Why didn't you warn me? Swap back, I want to switch back. You be the damned wife, let me be the boss. Patting her rough face, I spoke gently. You took it yourself, silly sister. Look here, I showed her my badge. Time for you to change how you address me. The next news of Clara I got was about her death. People said Nolan accidentally killed her due to poor child discipline. Their child, possibly due to genetic issues or upbringing problems, was malicious at just 3. He blinded Clara's eye with a fork, pushed his grandma down the stairs, and made his grandpa drink paint. A true-born devil. Realizing his son was hopeless, Nolan had no introspection, only blaming his wife. It's all your fault. You can't even be a mother. If it were Molly, she wouldn't have raised our kid like this. How did I know all this? From a legal TV show, naturally. On screen, Nolan finally dropped the act, revealing the beast inside, cuffed and shackled, roaring wildly. Towards the end, the host informed the audience about XYY syndrome's dangers, urging responsible family planning. On the day I acquired Nolan's company, I sat in his former office chair. It was on the top floor, overlooking the entire city. What Clara yearned for across 2 lifetimes was finally in my grasp. She never really understood. You're standing on the bridge, taking in the view. But remember, people up in the buildings are watching you too. It's too crowded halfway up the mountain. It's best to go and check out the view from the top. The end.